Today's episode of Rooted in Retail is a honest, vulnerable conversation between two business owners who have experienced stress and burnout when it comes to running a business. My guest today is my dear friend, my mentor, Patricia Norins. She was on the show earlier for episode 20, where we talked all about leasing in real estate. But today we are talking about how hard life can get. And Patricia went through a challenging time, really struggling this year, and she made it out alive, thankfully and obviously, but she had to really walk through the fire to get to the other side. And there were a lot of tools that helped support her to get her there. And so I love this conversation so much because she gives us actual tools that you can use, that you can do right after this episode. If you are going through a challenging time, if you don't feel like yourself, or if you really want to set yourself up for success when it comes to the holidays, because this episode is airing in October of 2023, where the whole month is all about helping you overcome or prevent burnout, stress. The holidays are such a busy time of year. And so Patricia has a lot of tools and tactics for you to support you during this time and past this time as well. You know, I mentioned this on other episodes where the things that we are talking about and learning, we're not going to just use them for Q4. These are things that we could really implement into our life to create a more stress-free life and to have more balance, which I know that we all crave. So I'm just so grateful for Patricia's vulnerability and honesty on going through a hard time, but talking about how she made it out and what she did. Like I mentioned, Patricia has already been on the show where we talked about leasing. She is a co-owner of the company Blue Butterfly, which you can check out at bluebutterflyllc.com. And on that website, you could also find Patricia's email if you want to reach out to her. Let her know what you loved about this episode, or if you need some support too. She made that offer at the end of the episode. So be sure to check them out, learn more about Patricia there. She has been a strategic consultant for the retail industry for a couple of decades now. I mean, she is very rooted in retail. It runs in her blood, in her family. She has so much experience when it comes to retail. And so she really understands this challenging time for retailers. We said this offline when we finished recording, but she said, Q4 stinks. Like it can be great. You can be making a lot of your money during Q4, but then you're also making a lot of the money. That means a lot of hard work. Like this can be a really challenging time. So she totally gets it. And both of her and I know that what we discussed today is going to really help support you during this time and beyond. So let's dive into this episode. Welcome to Rooted in Retail, the show that's dedicated to helping independent retailers thrive in today's ever-evolving retail landscape. I'm your host, Crystal Vilkaitis, and I'm thrilled to have you join me weekly as we explore topics that are vital to the success of your store. From marketing to mindset, money to merchandising, sales to leadership, we'll cover it all. Each episode features interviews with industry experts and accomplished retailers who share their real-life insights and actionable advice. Get ready for a great conversation on how to build your dream business with Rooted in Retail. Patricia, welcome back to Rooted in Retail. I am thrilled you're here.
Thank you for having me back. It's great to be here.
Yeah. So if anyone listened to episode 20, Patricia was a guest and we talked all about leasing. It was such a good episode. If you have any questions about leasing and property and real estate, you got to go back and listen to episode 20. But one thing we talked about in there too is Patricia is my mentor and has been for many years. And we were on a call and we do these check-in calls, and she was like, you know what would be a really good topic for Rooted in Retail? Stress management. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm doing a whole October theme about burnout and overwhelm and preparing us for the holidays. Will you please come back on the show? This is such a good idea. So I am stoked for this conversation. And as we were preparing for this, I said this to you. I feel like I need to hear what you're going to be sharing today. I feel like I've been go, go, go. And that's what our retailers deal with during the holidays. And you have so much advice to give us. And so first, will you just share what made you want to talk about stress management?
Well, as you and I had been talking about on several check-in calls that we do, I have a lot going on personally. So I have some family members facing some tough health issues. And, if that's not enough, being an entrepreneur and running a business, we all know that that can be stressful in and of itself. And then I have another element, which is that for a lot of our clients, I do real estate negotiation, which I absolutely love. I'm super passionate about it. But there is this element to real estate negotiation that makes it challenging because you don't know, there's this uncertainty that comes with every deal that you're doing in real estate. Is this deal going to cross the finish line? So with all of those variables outside of our control, sometimes that can equate to this sense of, when you lose control, having a perception of feeling like you're stressed out, right? So I've always been this super positive person. Every day is an exciting day for me, and there's really no challenge I can't overcome. But a couple months ago, I called you, and I think for the first time in, the 15 plus years that we've known each other, I'm like, man, I am just beyond stressed out. This feels like a load. I was physically feeling the symptoms of pressure on my chest. I told you I felt like my throat was closing in. And I just couldn't kind of clear that. And I felt like this is not the place that I want to be. I have got to do something about this.
Mm-hmm. And thankfully, I love that you reached out, and I love that you were exploring versus shoving it away and being like, nope, I don't have time for me. I think a lot of us will do that. And it's like, no, I got to take care of my family. I got to take care of my business. I don't have time to take care of myself. And that's why I'm really excited for this conversation today, because we all know if we don't put on our own oxygen masks, then first, right, then we die. So to put it just very honestly. And so we have to really show up. So why is stress management so important? I mean, this is a massive question. And obviously people are thinking and listening like, yeah, I know it's important, but let's really talk about why is this so important?
Well, first of all, I'm really glad that you said it's so important to talk about the issues, because I think for a little period of time, it's kind of like, I've got this. I'm the happy, positive person. Why is I don't need to deal with this. And then finally, I just was like, no, this isn't right. This isn't healthy. I need to start to have a conversation. Who can I reach out to in my, friendship, in all of my friendships? And I thought of you, and you were unbelievably supportive. And then that really made me take a step back, do some digging deeper within myself and reaching out for additional resources. And here we are today. And I feel like I have a fresh new perspective on things, and all of that feeling of weight on my chest, closing of my throat, it's totally gone, and fresh new perspective. So in some of the research that I was doing on the impact of stress, because as I've mentioned in prior podcasts, me, I love prioritizing my health. So, we're taking vitamins and supplements here. We love to work out. We eat 20 grams of fiber a day. And I feel like prioritizing your mental health is just as important as some of the things that you do for your body, like running or like taking vitamins. And when we don't take care of it, we can have mental challenges like depression, sleep deprivation. And we're seeing all kinds of research now on the impact of sleep deprivation and memory issues. And then there's the physical problems too, like chronic heart disease, high blood pressure, stroke. So it is so critical that if somebody is feeling, an enormous amount of stress and anxiety, that they figure out some outlets for it so that you are really proactive in the long term for your health. And then getting back to how it pertains to me, I really felt like on a short-term basis, I was just kind of struggling with, all of these weighty feelings. How do you stay in your happy place so that you can achieve peak performance, so that you can be creative, so that you can be strategic? And we know in running a business, it requires all of these things, problem solving. And when you just kind of feel like you're hitting that wall, it's impossible to then, be your best and really be like and strategic. So I just knew I had to change things up. I can't continue like this.
Way too important not to. And it's like this downward spiral, because you're not bringing enough to your business. You're not feeling the creativity. You feel like you can't solve the problems like you can. And then you feel the guilt. Then you feel the self-frustration. And then that makes us feel even worse. And it's this downward spiral. So I know that you found a lot of things that that really helped you. And so will you share what kind of mindset principles you started practicing or
Sure.
turned back to stay centered during this challenging time?
Excellent. So I think that you're right. I mean, I was at a place where I was spiraling. It wasn't just like it was consistent stress and anxiety every day. It was like, then I was feeling like, oh, I'm not bringing my all to my business. And then that would escalate, right? So, and then you feel you're not bringing your all to your family who needs you right now. So it just was, again, I'll use the word spiraling, and I probably used it 10 times already, but that's kind of where I felt I was at until I really took this step back. And it's funny because I thought, I'm going to solve for everything in a weekend. I think I told you, Adrian, my husband and I, we went away for a weekend getaway in Vermont, and I love getting into nature and spending a little bit of time up there. And I was like so ready. I had my coffee out on our deck, and he was gone for a number of hours mountain biking. And I thought, I'm going to sort through all this and I'm going to have like a clear head when I get back. And I just didn't have any major epiphanies like I normally would. So it did take me a little bit more time than a weekend. So sometimes we need to give ourselves that space so that we can figure out where we need to go. So I would say it took a good couple months to kind of sort through what kind of new mind shifts I needed to make in order to get where I am today. And the first mind shift change that I made is really trying to determine how much of what I'm feeling is real versus how much is kind of just these worrying thoughts that don't really mean anything. So, performing for a client, that's real. I do need to do that to maintain our client base. Being concerned that am I going to be my best today? That's just worry. And so I literally took pen to paper and made a list. I divided the paper in half and I made, what are the real things I need to focus on right now that are the items that are cause to maybe have some concern if there hasn't been enough time on them, or there are items that I have uncertainty around, but I can make a change. And then what are the items that are just sheer worry? And I took those worry, I ripped the paper off, took it to the side, and I said, let me spend my time focusing on the items that are real and that I can change. So that was step one.
Okay. I love this. I almost feel like we should name it something like the real worry list or something. Like, I love that you're giving us a tool we can use, because you need to get out of your mind sometimes. Like, it's hard to separate those feelings and know what is real. What can I control? What can't I control? We will create problems that don't even exist yet. And it's like, what am I worrying about? I don't even know if this is going to be an issue or not. I don't even know if I'm going to be my best self today or not. Let's just do the day. Let's figure it out versus have it steal our energy. So I love that tip. And I just have to point out one thing that I think is hilarious, that I feel like a lot of listeners can relate to this, is the fact that you were thinking you could solve all your problems in a weekend.
Right. That's it. I will come back on Sunday night and have my solution. That's it. All get it done.
Done. As entrepreneurs, we're like, we move fast. I don't have time for this.
No, I did not have time for this. And this is just not who I am. So I needed to move through this quickly, but sometimes it doesn't always work like that. And it was a good wake up call. You're right. You're
exactly.
So right.
I know, but I just had to point it out, because if anyone's listening and you're like, I am so tired of this, I need my answers. I need this fixed. It took Patricia a few months. When I went through my burnout, it took me a few years. I just could not figure out, and Patricia went through this with me. I could not figure out what I needed to release myself and feel okay and get back into my momentum and have that energy and the creativity. It was so hard. And sometimes I'd feel a little better, and then I go right into it. And it took a couple of years. So just be patient with yourself and have grace. And then you can use some of these tools. So give us the next thing that you used.
Okay. I want to say one last thing about that first item. And that is, you and I talk a lot about power of intention and what you put out there to the universe, right? So if on a daily basis, we're spending a lot of our time in that worry mode about things, focused on things we can't change, we're also putting out a lot of negativity to the universe, what could potentially go wrong, instead of thinking about during the day, what can I do to crush today?
Yes.
So that's the other reason I don't love the worry side of things. And I want to focus on the real actionable items.
Yes. Instead of what can go wrong, what can go right?
Yes.
What if we flip the script and say, what's going to go right today? What's going to surprise me in such a beautiful, amazing way? So good,
Perfect.
Patricia.
Exactly. Love that. So step two, for me was really recognition and embracing that there's going to be some days where it's stormy outside. End of story, right? Not every day is going to have sunshine. There's going to be some days where it's lightly drizzling and some days where it's going to be like torrential rain or even a hurricane. And that's okay. And so, not being so fearful of like, what if today is a terrible day? It's like, I'm going to just roll with whatever today brings, and some level of acceptance that it's okay if today's not a bad day helped me to, I guess, maybe release some of the fear around what is today going to look like.
And this is so good. I think, especially as we go into holidays, that retailers can be like, it's almost like you're holding your breath. Like,
Right.
what am I getting into today? Is my employee going to show up? Are they going to be on time? Are we going to have all is my inventory going to come in? Am I going to have enough bags? Like, so many things that we are going through every day, especially during the holidays. It's heightened. What's the weather going to be doing? I mean, there's so much. And so you can't jump into that mindset and start your day that way. No, I love it. Great advice.
So just embracing. There's going to be some rough days, and that's okay. There's going to be some tough customers. That's okay. There's going to be some inventory that may not show or it's late, and that's okay.
Yep.
So it's really about staying centered even when there are storms and not getting stuck in those emotional highs and lows. And somebody had shared with me a really interesting metaphor. He said, what if, regardless of where the storm is happening, picture maybe you're like a ship. You're a tiny, tiny little ship in the middle of the Pacific Ocean during a terrible storm. And instead of focusing so hard on trying to navigate these huge waves, you just kind of sail through. And so, with that, you're not going to go totally crazy on a good day, and you're not going to go totally crazy on a bad day. You just try and balance yourself out. And I thought that was a lovely principle to take into every day too. How can I just try and stay centered today?
It's so good. And I think if we're not used to that and we are so caught up, I'm almost thinking for myself, like, how could I apply this? And it might mean we're all so different, but it might mean that you've got a note on the mirror to start the day that way of like, how can I be centered? How can I be balanced? Or an alarm that goes off on your phone, like checking in. Are we centered? Are we balanced? Or if you journal every morning, like, how can I be centered today? You have to integrate this, because it's so easy to listen to it on a podcast and be like, yes, totally agree. I need to be more centered. But then the day happens and you wake up and you forget everything you learned on the podcast. So if this is resonating with you, I really recommend set yourself up for success. Or is it the Post-it on the mirror? Is it the journal entry? Is it the alarm? What do you need to do to really start your day that way?
Beautiful. I love that. And then I'm going to mention a metaphor that I was able to take from martial arts, that also, as my this person was telling me about kind of the suggestion of staying centered even during the storm, I was thinking about how when we have all this anxiety and stress, we're in like a fight or flight mode, right? And like, our adrenaline's running, and like that's why we're starting to feel all these things that we feel inside. And it reminded me of back when I was in college and I was doing martial arts, and it was the kind that I did was Kwan Mukana, very aggressive. You're punching and you're getting punched back and you're learning how to take all these punches. And I would come home from college, and my parents at the time were studying Tai Chi, and their Tai Chi master knew that I was studying this other form of martial arts. So he would say, let me see your karate that you've got. And then he said, why don't we spar a little bit? And so I come in and I'm, jumping up and down, back and forth, taking punches. He's not even moving. He's just completely standing there, centered, calm, smiling even. I've got my serious fight face on, right? And I'm like going in and out. I go to punch him, and he just takes one hand down, and it just like completely blocks the punch. Now I'm like going back in. I'm trying to punch again. He takes a step back. He has not been engaging. This whole time I'm hopping around, my heart's racing. I'm trying to like punch him. And in Tai Chi, there's just this principle that you can do something as simple as move your arm down or take a step back. It's a very subtle reaction to the fighting all around you. And I just felt like there was something about it as I was trying to piece together this, paradigm of how to navigate through these times, that, if we can kind of embrace some of the principles of Tai Chi where we're not in that fight mode, we just take a step back.
Man, how powerful. That's a really great story to connect with what we're talking about here. Can you just take a step back? And I'm going to use this. I love that. I feel like it's easier to kind of fly off the handle or get frustrated really fast and start to fight and go into that mode. Cause I almost feel like we're like trained to do that almost and keep up and things move fast. And you just kind of like, instead of, okay, one step back,
Right.
one movement, that brings peace.
Maybe
Love
it's
it.
even like a deep breath, right? When a
Yes.
customer is maybe responding in a way that you don't like,
Yeah.
or something doesn't go right. It's just like, okay, let me take a step back. Let me close my eyes for a minute
Yep.
and recenter.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. Okay. What else do you do, Patricia?
Okay. So sometimes I felt during this really unsettled time, I felt so overwhelmed by everything. I couldn't take any action at all, right? We've been there. We have this massive to-do list. Gosh, there was a day I had like 50 things on my to-do list. I probably just went a little too crazy, like we can all do as business owners, and like put everything under the sun that I had to accomplish. And I remember thinking in this day, like I didn't cross a single thing off my to-do list. And then we talk about how that feeling starts to grow again of stress escalation. So then I reminded myself, well, wait a minute here. Let's just do anything on the list. You know, we're trained like we need to prioritize, and it's always about the top 3 things. And maybe you can get your top 5 things crossed off your list today. You know what? Sometimes when it's so overwhelming, any kind of action at all, especially during the holiday season, is a successful action. So let's just say maybe sales aren't where you're hoping sales are going to be on November 15th. And you're like overwhelmed, forget it. That's it. I can't even do another thing. Just take a marketing action. It doesn't have to be the top marketing action. It doesn't have to be 50 marketing actions. Do something. So that's what I reminded myself of on a day where I just really felt very overwhelmed. It's not always about prioritizing and checking everything off the list. It's just about keeping the momentum going forward.
Yeah. We are such achievers, right? As entrepreneurs, we want to achieve and do and knock it out of the park. It goes back to having grace. And it so reminds me of a story that I told on Crystal Uncorked, which I'll make this very short. But when I had my first company, I was early 20s. I didn't know what the heck I was doing. And I was struggling. I was just trying to figure it all out. And I went to a ladies networking event with very successful ladies. Like it was the top of the local market. And me and my friend were invited as young entrepreneurs to come in. And they went around, they started this networking group with, you go to each table and you stand up and you say what you're proud of. They wanted to really celebrate everybody in the room. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm struggling. I'm not proud of anything. Like, I'm so nervous. And then all of a sudden they're like, we're going to start with this table. And it's the table I'm at. And I'm the second person. I'm like, I can't even hear what everybody else says. So I can at least like take somebody's thing or, like gives me an idea. Second person, I stand up and I say, I'm just glad I got out of bed today, and just start crying. It was so embarrassing. But honestly, I heard the women yell, we've been there before. You've got this. Like so supportive. And what you're saying reminds me of that was honestly my biggest accomplishment that day, on getting to that table, right? I did not know anything else. I felt so out of control. Where am I going? What am I doing? So much self-doubt, but I showed up. And I was like, okay, I'm proud of that. And you know what? The next day I felt a lot better. I think you have to remember that this isn't forever. This feeling of like, I can't get my to-do list done. Like this frustration, it's not forever. I promise it'll go away. Obviously, look at you, right, Patricia? Like you found your way through the darkness. So thank you for sharing that example and experience that you went through. What else? Because I know you got some more good stuff.
More good stuff here. So next up on the list is a good reminder to trust the process and trust ourselves. So I think a lot of times, we've done these things many, many years. And for a lot of retailers out there, this could be their 25th holiday season, their 30th holiday season. I think you just had somebody post recently, it was like their 50th holiday season or something like that. So, I think that when we can look back on our past successes and kind of remind ourselves we've been here before, we've gotten through those times and we can do it again, then that's super reassuring.
Totally.
And then I also want to mention that I have recently read an article that was super helpful. And Michelle Obama was talking about her new book, The Light We Carry, which I haven't yet read, but it's on my to read list. And she was talking about recalling the moment that her husband approached her about running for president. And he said, I don't want to run for president unless you're in. And then she thought to herself, gosh, that's like such a huge thing that he's just put on my lap. Like now it's my decision if my husband's running for president. And then the next thought that she had is how overwhelming it was going to be. Like, this is crazy. And then she reflected back and she imagined, if she didn't have the strength to move forward because her fear was blocking her, then that could have altered history and he wouldn't have been our president for 8 years. So, I think part of trusting the process and what resonated for me and what Michelle said is that it's okay to be comfortably afraid at times, right? Like that's all right. We don't always have to feel super comfortable. So maybe there is that, philosophy that, going into the holiday season, you know what, this is going to just be a rough 8 weeks and that's all right. I've done it before. I can do it again. It's going to be a little uncomfortable, but that's going to be okay.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the unknown is scary. Mm-hmm. So we don't know in the people, for the people that have celebrated 50 years and you've done this a few times, there's a lot, but you just never know. And technology is evolving so fast and AI is such a bigger part of our world now that there are a lot of unknowns. So there's fear. It's scary, but we just have to know that's the name of the game with entrepreneurship is that there's a lot you don't know and a lot that changes. Embrace the fear, embrace the unknown. It's so good.
Yep. And I also think that just knowing that, maybe you're challenging yourself a little bit is a way that you can kind of put your head around it. Just knowing that like, okay, so I have done it before, but you know what? This year is going to be hard. This year holds its own challenges, right? Every year is a little different, regardless of having done it before. Maybe the economy is different. Like you're saying, technology's evolved. Maybe you have a new team of employees than you've had before. I mean, there's always new variables. It's never exactly the same. So just knowing that we can, practice moving out of our comfort zone and being a little bit uncomfortable. It's kind of like in yoga, when I go practice that, there's many poses that are very comfortable, and then there's many poses that are uncomfortable. And our yoga instructor will tell us, to kind of breathe through that pain, and that's all right. So just a little reminder that I got from Michelle to, breathe through the pain and get through it, and it's okay. And rely on ourselves because if we've navigated tough times before and we've all done that, we can do it again.
Yes, we don't realize what we're made of sometimes. And I really do. Marie Forleo, everything's figure outable. I really feel that way. And we will find a way through it. I think about being first lady. How the hell are you supposed to prepare for something like that? Like that's just, you have no idea what you're really getting into until you've done it. So, we really do have to have that self-belief and that trust. And like my grandma says, do it afraid.
I love that. That's awesome. Well, I also, in reading a little bit more about Michelle, I found out that her mom moved into the White House with her during the entire presidency of her husband because she just wanted that additional support.
See, that's such a great lesson. How can we find the support that we need, especially during these hard times? It could be friends, it could be family, it could be at the house, it could be at the store. This could be another great journal exercise of looking ahead. How can I really set myself up for success? And what kind of support do I need? And get it now. And some of that, I'm very much thinking of holiday marketing because we're doing our holiday marketing workshop end of September that's coming up as we're filming this. And a part of this is like, get as much done as you can now before the craziness and the hustle and bustle. So how can you really set yourself up for success and get support? Excellent advice. Mm-hmm. Okay. What else are you doing?
Michelle, I was just want to talking about support. She talks about, who's at your kitchen table. She uses this term. And so, for her, she's got these 12 girlfriends and, they sit down with her at her table and she talks about gravitating to the light. So, thinking about your support system in your life, whether it's friends, whether it's family, whether it's other mentors in your community, just surrounding yourself with people who love you, who know you, they're there for you, they're going to cheerlead for you. And that was part of the reason that I reached out to you when I was having, at the beginning of my journey of kind of figuring things out. It's like, I just needed a beacon of light. in the darkness, So I think knowing that we can rely on friends, colleagues, other employees, is very helpful and a good reminder. And she also talks about, don't wait. A lot of us will say like, I'm going to wait until my kids are out of high school, to get together. I'm going to wait until the holiday season's over. And we're always waiting for these things because sometimes they don't feel convenient. She's like, don't wait, do it now, do it today. And so that was a good reminder for me too, when I was, reading that and kind of struggling at this time, to just reach out to people. And I made a point to get together with people more than I had been. And maybe like we had a little reset during COVID. I've been reading a lot about that, where, we got used to being a little bit more solo. And so now I'm going to encourage everyone, just like I did, is reach out to people that especially when you're coming up on a tough Q4, and get some more support.
It's critical. It's so important. I mean, you have to have your tribe, especially I think as an entrepreneur. I love it. And if there is anyone listening to this that's like, I don't really have that friend, or I don't really have that tribe, join our Rooted in Retail Facebook group. There's totally a fly that just landed on my head if you're watching this. But we'll keep going because, that's what happens here. But join our group because we have an amazing, or maybe it's another group. There are a lot of different groups out there that are people like you, but I can't stress enough that I say this in our intro, retail can be tough, but it doesn't have to be lonely. And that's the same that goes with entrepreneurship. So having some of that support and connection, especially during this time, just to know you're not alone, there's so much relief in that. Or somebody saying, oh, I went through that last year too. And you're like, really? I'm not the only one. Like sometimes we feel like we're the only ones that struggle with this problem, which is so like,
you and I have talked about that.
Like,
It feels so lonely at the top as an entrepreneur. Yeah. So it's really critical to have other entrepreneurs who are also running businesses who can definitely relate over everything that you're going through and add to it, because maybe they've been there and maybe they've had a solve for one of your challenges, and vice versa. You can give them a solve for, something that you were able to figure out. So that support is just huge, huge.
Completely agree. If you're tired of your social media creating little to no results, or you feel like your content has just gotten stale or maybe even boring, I have a brand new free training for you. It's called the Social Media Hooks and Hacks: How to Save Time and Stand Out. This training is going to help you capture your customers' attention from the very beginning, get them to stop the scroll, engage, and act. You're going to stand out from the competition with branded, unique content. It's time to save time and connect with customers like never before with this 80-minute training. You can get it at crystalmediaco.com/hooks, HOOKS, hooks. Don't delay. Watch this training. It's going to transform your content. You're going to love it. Enjoy.
And then the other thing that I came up with is the concept of working smarter, not harder. So really focusing on efficiency, right? So I had this massive to-do list as everything under the sun. I need to come in. I'm used to, having a mindset of working at 110%. I'm going to crush it. And then I started doing some reading, and there's some new research that says if we can just bring 80% to our day every single day, we're actually going to get a lot further than bringing 110% to our day every day. Why? Because we get burned out when we're at 110%. And on physical training, there's a whole body of research. I think I talked about this on a podcast a little while ago, where you don't need to train at 100% every day. It's actually better to have many of your workouts throughout the week at a much lighter intensity. And then you do one workout a week where you're going what they call all out, or zone 4. So can we kind of restructure our day so that it's not like, all out 110%. And then like you're 2 weeks in, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to make it through the holiday season. And sometimes I get it. It's what's required, right? We have to get the merchandise on the shelf. We have to do what it takes. And so there are going to be those periods of time, but how can you work in a little more efficiency? So does that mean maybe adding another staff member to help you with unpacking? I brought on some more people to the team. I just realized, I can justify that. And I was just trying to take on too much myself. My list was like just not achievable in a day. So I scaled the list back and became more realistic on what kind of to-do list I faced every day, and just decided I need to really focus on efficiency and not just this all out craziness of where I was at.
Hmm. I almost feel it's like an opposite feeling that you would think if you were like, I'm going to try to give 80% today versus 110 because 80 feels achievable. And so I feel like you actually are set up for success much easier and it will flow because you're like, oh, I can achieve this. So you will mindset, right? And the belief of us being able to do something versus 110. It's like, well, I really got to push then. And then that feels hard. And it's already going into it being like, this is hard. This is challenging. My mentor, Chris Winfield, talks about 51%. Just be 51%. Like, so even less than 80, that feels so doable. If you look at like I'm going to go into the day and give it 51%, like you can, it feels achievable. And I think we actually get more done. So I love that you said that, especially during this crazy time of year.
You're just reminding me, I have another entrepreneur that I've been friends with and we've done accountability calls together. And her whole approach every day is just her top 3 items. She puts it on a tiny little Post-it note. She never has a list of 50 items or 20 items or 10. It's always just what are the top 3 things that she needs to get done today. And that's all she ever has in front of her. If she gets those done, she might come up with a few more, or maybe, pulls out a master list from somewhere else, but that master list never sits in front of her. And it's always just to focus on the top 3, because who can't come to work and get like their top 3 most important items done? For the most part, you can. So maybe it's a focus on setting realistic goals is really what this boils down to. And then being efficient.
And so that creates efficiency because you're being very strategic and clear on what does move the new. I almost said move the noodle. That's a new one. But move the needle. Like where are you going to see the most effort? What are the top 3 things? And, we hear people say that all the time, the top 3 things to really get your business to where you want to go. But we don't take the time to figure out the top 3 things. And I know that everybody listening could find 10 minutes in their day to really stop and be like, what are the 3 things? Where can I really support myself? And then it feels so freeing just to think about only doing those 3 things. You're going to get more than those 3 things done. But we're going to go into it just being like, this is my only focus. And if I get these things done, when I get these things done, I'm on top of the world because I say it a lot. I set myself up for success, and then that fuels momentum. Then you feel like, oh, okay, what else can I do? Because I feel so accomplished today and I did the stuff that's really going to support my business. So think of those 3 things. So good. I love how many tips and tools you're giving us in this episode, Patricia. So good.
And then I'm going to say, and this is something I just think we don't do enough as entrepreneurs. And this is, kind of like the final prong that really helped me was taking a step back to, first of all, make sure on a daily basis, I'm focusing on gratitude. And then secondly, celebrating successes. So, I think both of those things are critical. I think again, it's easy when we're in a place of stress and anxiety to focus on what we don't have, to focus on, all the worry or what could happen. And when we shift over to gratitude, then we're focusing on what we have, what we're grateful for instead of fears that may not even be real.
Exactly. Gratitude was a big part of my therapy. When anytime I want to talk, this fly just wants to come hang out with me. But in therapy, we would often, it would come back to gratitude, and that being in a grateful state, it really, I feel like, makes you notice what does matter, and it makes you feel like the rest is easier to deal with because there is so much good. Typically, I know sometimes we're going through very hard times, very traumatic times. There can be a lot going on in life, but when we do take this moment, we can find the things to be grateful for. And when I was at a conference last week, ALA, the keynote speaker was Steve Rizzo, and he was saying something along the same lines. And he's like, we always look at what's not working, but what if we look at what is and what has? And that goes with your celebrating piece. Like we just get so caught up in, because we're achievers and we're trying to do. And it's like, oh, but I didn't exactly get it where I want to do, or yeah, we did that, but I want to climb this mountain over here. And it's like, when he said that, it was like, whoa, if I really think about all the stuff that we have done, we've done so much. And imagine if I thought about all those things as much as I think about the things we haven't done yet. Like it's flipping the script. So talk a little bit more about celebrating. What have you been doing to celebrate?
Well, I want to first share that you and I have set a goal that just to kind of show what a celebration could look like. Crystal and I are planning in the very near future to go to New York. We're going to rent a limo, a very big limo, not just like a sedan car. We're going to open up the rooftop because we both set very big goals for our businesses, and she's reached her goal that she set. I believe that we're going to reach our goal by the end of this year. Yay. And so in January, if it's not too cold, maybe we want to wait till spring. I don't know, but I'm all about getting there as soon as we can to celebrate. We are going to rent a limo. We're going to pop some champagne in the back of the limo, open up the skylight and stand up and just scream at the top of our lungs that we got to our goal. And all this time I've been envisioning it because we set this goal several years ago. It was a longer term goal. Right. And just to know that we're both there, and it's the same goal, really. It was a certain revenue goal that we both wanted to get to. And so that's going to be huge for us to do our New York celebration. Yes. Sometimes it's as simple now as going downstairs and over dinner, telling my husband, hey, I got my top 3 items accomplished on my list today. Yep. Or, hey, you know what? I'm really feeling grateful that we have our clients that we have, so switching it back to gratitude. Yep. Or, hey, we had a really good month. Isn't this exciting? Mm-hmm. So it's just, I think, really about breaking down the successes for me right now into really small bite-sized pieces, and almost on a daily basis, trying to think about like what you just said, what's going right with the business, instead of like what I'm not happy with or what I wish I could be doing more of. It's kind of focusing on what I'm happy about.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I love it. And I almost see this store doing, if this is at the end of each day or at the end of the week, like turn on some music and have a little celebration party that you just like, and another week we did it, and maybe there are records you broke, milestones that you achieved and hit, or maybe not. It's just that you survived another day. Let's celebrate. You're in business. You've got amazing customers. You've got to show up. Did you just grab your bell?
I did. Yes. You got me. Yeah, I did. I'm going to share the bell. I'm like, oh my gosh, why didn't I share the bell?
Yes.
Sorry, Crystal, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Please. I mean,
Crystal was talking about, having these daily celebrations, and I'm all about daily celebrations on a big level. So, anybody who knows me knows that I have a bell on my desk, and, we do a lot of team meetings and client meetings. And anytime there is a success story shared, which is almost on a daily basis, somebody gets a bell ring. And it may seem a little hokey. And at first people are like, wait, she just rang a bell. Like, when new people join my team, or like sometimes even with clients, I'm like, I'm going to prepare you. There's going to be some bell ringing. They're like, what are you talking about? I said, oh, I like to ring a bell when we're hitting our success metrics. And they kind of, you could see like they're a little bit, maybe reluctant, I guess, to kind of buy in, like, oh, okay. And then now people are, once they get into the bell, people love the bell. Yes. And they're asking me to ring the bell. Are you going to ring? Like, if I don't even, like it's like maybe a nice story. Maybe it's not what I'm perceiving to be a total success. They're like, are you going to ring the bell? I'm like, of course I'm going to ring the bell. I'm going to ring the bell. So I encourage you, if you don't have a bell in your store, get a bell on top of some fun music, and maybe you ring the bell on a nightly basis for, beating last year's year-to-date sales, or last year same day sales. Or, just kind of tracking along and getting to goal for holiday. Maybe there's a certain metric you want to be at, and just ring that bell, because there's nothing that feels better than ringing the bell.
So good. I love it. Go buy a bell, ring the bell. It makes me want to sing, you can ring my bell. I've got all the bells happening. It's so fun. Patricia, anything else that you did to really help you get on the other side of such a challenging time and be able to share with us today?
I'm going to say that sometimes it's a matter of just breathing. And so that's my final tip for today. Is that, Crystal, you were really helpful in kind of walking me through some imagery that I could use. So if I was starting to feel some physical symptoms of, like, I would describe it as like my throat's closing in, And it just kind of felt like somebody was putting their hands around my throat, and it would be getting like tighter and tighter. And you were like, you know what if you closed your eyes when that happened and you just took some deep breaths and you imagined that opening up? And so many times during that like really, really dark time of like 8 weeks, we'll call it, I just did that, and I just kept practicing that. And then all of a sudden one day I realized like, gosh, I haven't felt my throat close in for a couple weeks, and it just went away. And so I don't know if it was through just putting all these different practices into place. I don't know if it was just through daily breathing or gratitude or bringing more support into my life or celebrating more success or, realizing that, hey, there's going to be these storms, but I can remain calm through the storm. I don't know which one of the things did it, but I knew that I was in a totally different place just one day. It just kind of hit me. And I was like, wow, this feels so different. And then that's when it kind of came full circle. And I came to you and I was like, look, let's just have a conversation around this with your listeners, because this is good stuff. And there could be other people out there who need some of these strategies as well.
I think it has to, this is a combination of so many different things that you did to really support yourself, which I think can also really support longer term. And ideally, this becomes a habit. Like this becomes a way of life for us. And that's why I was bringing in some of these, how can I make the change? Because that's what I'm thinking here. I don't want to go back to the burnout, and I want to be able to take the step back, and I want to stay centered and balanced and really show up to be my best self every day, even though sometimes that's not great, and be okay with that, so I just so appreciate you sharing everything that helped you, and also just being honest with the fact that you went through a really challenging time. You felt like everything was just crumbling. Like the fact of being able to say like, I don't feel like myself, and this is very uncomfortable. And I had anxiety. I had feelings of my throat closing. Like there was so much stress, and it was surprising to me because like you said, you're positive. You're on it, man. Like you really managed stress well, but your cup got too full. It was a lot to deal with. And you found ways through it, which I'm so grateful. And I was so grateful to be a small part of that. And so thank you for sharing and being vulnerable and honest with our audience. Because again, I'm sure at least one person listening to this feels relief because they're not alone. They got some tools. They feel a little more confident. And I just really appreciate you sharing.
Thank you. Well, thank you for having me here. And it took me a minute to like think, hey, this is being vulnerable, right? Because you always want to wear that, you want to feel successful as an entrepreneur. You and I talk a lot about that. What does success look like as an entrepreneur? And so if you are saying, hey, you know what? I have some stress. I have some anxiety. Like how does that then fit into like how we perceive ourselves as successful entrepreneurs? But I think that we're just being honest. And it's okay to be in that vulnerable place, to admit it, to not shove it under the rug, because ultimately it's going to be better for our health. It's going to be better for our family, and it's going to be better for our business if we can kind of come forward and say, you know what, I am in a tough place. So what do I do? What are the tools and the strategies that I can implement to turn it around?
I so agree. And I think being vulnerable is a form of success. I think we're seeing more of it, like we're starting to see more people be open and honest. And I really appreciate that out of people. And it only makes us better, and it only makes us connect with each other more, and it's more relatable. And we really get a lot out of that vulnerability. So again, I thank you. Patricia, where can people learn more about you and Blue Butterfly?
I would love for them to pop over to our website if they're interested, bluebutterflyllc.com. And we talked a little bit about mentoring earlier on the call. I'm happy to chat with anybody more about this topic. If anybody's feeling like they need some more support, give me a buzz or send me an email. You'll find our email on my email on the website. And I'd love to be some support if I could for anybody out there.
Awesome. I mean, you've been an incredible mentor to me. I would not be where I am today without you. I've been in those dark moments calling you, like needing that support, and you have helped me so much. So thank you for that as well. And really, Patricia offers so much value. So if you are really feeling stuck, hit her up. Like, she's just so incredibly helpful. And then we'll link to all of the contact information as well as episode 20, because that is a great episode where we're very business in that one, all about leasing and real estate. But man, our retailers learned so much. We got a lot of great feedback on your episode. So we'll link to that. And everyone, just keep in mind that I am rooting for your success. Have a great week ahead. Thanks, Patricia. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much for being here. It means the world to me. Don't forget to join the Rise and Shine newsletter, which is social media news you need to know, sent via email every Monday morning. Go to crystalmediaco.com/rise to join. And don't miss the newest episode of Rooted in Retail, which drops every Sunday morning.